I'm going to tell you something that still stings to say out loud. I walked up to the gate of the house I built for my mother, and the guard almost didn't let me in. He looked at my beard, my dusty shoes, my torn bag, and said I didn't look like family. Tell me, if it were you, what would you have done? My name is Charles. 15 years ago, I left Nigeria for the United States with nothing but a plane ticket and a promise to myself. I swore I would make enough money to lift my family out of the kind of worry that stains your sleep and eats your pride. God blessed my hands. Hotels, estates, a factory that smelled like warm metal and oil, cars that looked like they belonged in magazines. I didn't buy those things just to shine. I bought them so I could send money home every month. Pay school fees, buy my sister a wedding she would still talk about years later, and hand my mother the keys to a mansion with white walls that warmed in the sunset. I remember her tears that day, the way she pressed the keys to her chest like a child would hold a treasure. That memory still keeps me soft. So when I came home after 15 years, I came differently. No entourage, no polished shoes, no cologne you could smell from the door. I wanted to see something simple and hard at the same time. I wanted to see if I still mattered without the shine. Maybe that sounds foolish to you. Maybe it sounds like pride wearing a disguise. But I had my reasons. You ever get the feeling people are clapping for the money standing next to you, not for you yourself? Yeah, that happened. The evening I returned, the sun was laying down slow over Enugu, turning the road orange. My bag was light because I kept it that way on purpose. I knocked, and the guard peeped out, squinting like I was a rumor. When he finally let me in and called my mother, she came running, hands shaking as she touched my face. "Charles, my son, is this you?" I dropped to my knees and hugged her waist like I used to as a boy. For a second, I felt safe. My mother's love never needed proof. Word traveled quicker than harmattan wind. By evening, the compound hummed with engines. Black Range Rover, Lexus, a shiny Mercedes that looked like it knew every camera angle. My older brother Elijah stepped out first, wearing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Henry followed watch, glinting that quick nod men do when they think they've already measured you. Our sister Amanda came with her husband, all perfume and gold and soft laughter. They walked into the living room like a movie cast. I sat quietly with my bag on the floor. Brother Charles, Elijah said, crossing his legs, "We thank God for your life." He leaned in. "You must have come with plenty blessings." Henry's grin tightened. Amanda pressed my hands and said she was so happy I was back. I listened. I let the silence pull the sugar off their words. Then I told them a story. I told them I was framed in America, that a man I trusted put a knife in my back, that the government seized my properties, that I went from boardrooms to courtrooms to a plane seat with a one-way ticket and no dollar to my name. I let my voice break in the right places. I let my shoulders sag like a man carrying a storm. My mother cried. My siblings wore sympathy like suits, and one by one they promised to help. "Give me time," Elijah said, moving his wrist like he was already counting phone calls. "I will raise something," Henry added, nodding the way people nod when they plan to forget. Amanda squeezed my hand and promised support, eyes bright like glass. I slept that night with a small hope flickering under my ribs. It lasted longer than it should have. Days turned into weeks. I sat on the balcony each evening watching the gate like a man waits on rain. It never came. My phone stayed quiet. When I called, Elijah answered once to say he had traveled. Henry didn't pick up at all. Amanda sent a message with a heart emoji and no plan. You know that emptiness you feel when silence becomes the answer. That. My mother said, call them again, my son. They cannot forget you. So I called. Then I went. Elijah's house was loud the day I arrived. Music, laughter, perfume heavy in the air. Cars lined the compound like trophies. For a heartbeat, I almost smiled, proud of him in spite of everything. Then he saw me. The smile left his face like someone turned off a light. Charles, what are you doing here? He said, voice low and sharp. You should have told me. I have guests. I told him I had called. He said he was out of town. The music thumped behind us like a heartbeat going wrong. Is this the right time? He asked, eyes on my dusty shoes. You cannot just show up uninvited. I said I was his brother and asked for a room for the night. He looked at me like the word brother had expired. I have no space, he said. No space. In a 6-bedroom house. I walked out with my bag and my dignity, trying to keep up. Pattern interrupt. It hurt. I went to Amanda next. Her gate opened slow, like it was thinking. The guard stared at me hard enough to leave a bruise. Inside the house was bright and expensive, the kind of place where the curtains fall like a waterfall. Amanda came out in lace gold earrings, swinging face painted in the soft, kind of beautiful money buys. Brother Charles, she whispered, eyes wide but careful. She looked left and right like kindness had witnesses. Her husband joined, polite the way you are with strangers you can't throw out. We sat. I told them my story again, because you repeat yourself to family and hope the second verse will land different. Her husband said things are not always how they look, that school fees and business costs were heavy, that they had responsibilities. I nodded because I know about responsibility. I built theirs with my own hands. Burden, I said slowly. Am I a burden to you? Amanda lowered her eyes. One of her children peeked and asked loud enough for me to hear, Mommy, who is this poor man? That line cut me clean. I stood, thanked them for their time, and left. I didn't cry until I got to the street where no one could see. Last stop, Henry. The gate was tall and black with security men who laughed when I said I was his brother. Our Oga no get brother way resemble suffer, one of them said. He went inside anyway. Henry came out in a white shirt that tried too hard, holding a glass of wine like a prop. He looked me over and sighed. Why didn't you call? He asked. I told him I had many times. He raised his hand, annoyed. Respect yourself, he said, like I'd come to sell him bad news. Let me stay here for a while, I said, just until I find my feet again. He took a slow sip, eyes moving over me like a price tag. This is not a charity home, he said. Then he gave me an option. My gateman wants to travel. If you want to stay, take his job. Open the gate. Wash the cars. Clean the compound. At least then you won't be useless. Silence. Then something inside me sat down. I didn't plan to kneel, but I did. I remembered the day Henry knelt before me years ago, thanking me for money to start his company. I remembered the look in his eyes then. Gratitude is warm. Pity is cold. Contempt is a freezer. I got up, picked my bag, and left as the gate closed behind me with a sound I still hear in my dreams. Clang, like a judge's gavel. I walked back to my mother's house with the night around my shoulders. When she saw my face, she didn't ask a question at first. Mothers know. She let me speak until I ran out of words, and then she cried the way old women cry, deep and low like a prayer breaking. She held my head and said, "Even if the whole world turns against you, I will stand by you." That sentence is a blanket and a sword. The next morning, she tied her wrapper tight and called each of them. "Come home on Sunday," she said, her voice made of iron. They came, all of them, with their cars and their careful smiles and suspicion sitting under their clothes. We gathered in the living room. My mother sat with her hands clasped like a judge. I looked at the faces of people I had bled for. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I told them what happened. I laid each scene on the table like a playing card. Elijah's party, Amanda's soft refusal, Henry's job offer at the gate. None of them looked at me for long. Then I said something that made the air change. I lied, I said. Not about you, about me. Head snapped up. Pattern interrupt. Twist coming. I was not framed. I was not deported. The government did not seize anything. I am not poor. The room went hot and quiet. I took out my phone and scrolled through photos. Hotels under glassy skies. Factory floors wide as fields. A driveway with a line of cars so long it looked like a sentence. Boardrooms, contracts, staff cutting ribbons with gold scissors. My businesses in America, in Dubai, in London. All of it alive. Breathing. Growing. I came home to test the love in this house, I said. And I got my results. My mother closed her eyes and nodded through tears. Elijah's mouth opened and shut like a fish pulled up too fast. Henry set his glass down so slowly you would think he was trying to stop time. Amanda's mascara trembled. I wish I could tell you I felt triumphant. I didn't. I felt tired in a way that didn't touch my bones, only my heart. I told them I had seen enough to make a decision I never thought I'd make. From today, I said, I want nothing to do with any of you. My only family in this house is the woman who stood by me when I looked like dust. You think that's fair? If it were you, what would you have done? Elijah tried to speak first. Charles, wait, I can explain. Explain what I asked. The party I walked into after you told me you traveled. Henry leaned forward with a new humility that came late to the party. Brother, we misunderstood. You offered me a gateman's job in a house like the one I built for you, I said. He looked at his hands like they held the answer. Amanda cried, said she was ashamed, said her husband made her choose caution over compassion. I believed the tears. I didn't have energy left for the promises. My mother spoke then, voice firm and breaking at the same time. Did you hear your brother? She asked them. After all he did for you, you rejected him because you thought he was poor. You betrayed blood. You betrayed love. She looked at each of them until they dropped their eyes. May God judge this, she said. It wasn't a curse. It was a sentence written in air. I stood, picked up the same torn bag I had carried in, and walked toward the door. Pattern interrupt. No dramatic speech, just motion. Outside, a black G-Wagon idled like it had been waiting its whole life for this moment. My driver stepped out and opened the door. Yes, I kept that part hidden too. The guard who had doubted me earlier stared like he was trying to reconcile two pictures in his head. I sat down, closed the door, and told the driver to move slow. I wanted the moment to last long enough to teach me something. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. I wish I could say they ran after the car that we all hugged in the driveway and promised to be better. That belongs to another story. In mine, the car rolled out of the gate and the mansion shrank in the side mirror until it was a white dot in a city that didn't look the same anymore. My phone started to vibrate with calls. I let it. Sometimes silence is the only way to hear yourself think. You might be asking why I did it this way. Why not just come home as myself, gifts in hand, and keep the peace? Here is the truth I learned living far from home. Money can fix a lot of things. It cannot fix the parts of a person that bow to money first. And if you never test that, you will spend the rest of your life paying for a love that never existed. Harsh, maybe. Necessary. For me, yes. In the days that followed, people talked. They always do. Some said I was cruel for setting a trap. Others said I was wise for looking under the shine. I didn't argue. I took my mother to visit her sister in the village. We ate pounded yam under a mango tree. We laughed. I breathed. I slept without checking my phone. I worked in quiet, made new investments, learned the names of the children of the men who sweep the floors of my factory. I tipped the woman selling roasted corn like she saved my life. Maybe kindness is louder when you've just heard the sound of a door closing. But the story didn't end without a second twist. One evening, just as the sun began to fall, and the birds started that soft chorus that means home to me, my gate opened, and Amanda walked in with no makeup, no jewelry, just her eyes. She knelt before my mother and me, hands trembling, and she confessed everything. How fear had wrapped itself around her throat. How the comfort I gave her turned into a cage with golden bars. How she forgot what it felt like to be poor, and how that forgetting made her hard. She said she wasn't asking for me to come back as a brother. She was asking for a chance to be a better human being. You know what I believed her? Not because of the tears, but because of how she looked me in the eye when the crying stopped. We started with coffee, then small talk, then a long conversation on a Sunday afternoon where the air smelled like rain. I told her boundaries are love in another language. I told her trust grows slow and breaks fast. She told me she would prove care without a calculator. We shook hands on that. Simple, honest, fragile, real. As for Elijah and Henry, they sent messages that read like formal letters. I'm not ready yet. Maybe one day, maybe not. You get to choose your family too, even when they share your blood. Before you type your comment, let me ask you straight. Do you think that's fair? If someone you love failed that kind of test, would you cut them off? Or would you hold out your hand and try to rebuild? And what about the test itself? Is it a wise man's mirror or a proud man's trick? Here's the part that might sound like a lesson, but it isn't. It's just what I saw when the money stepped out of the room. True love shows up in the middle of nothing. It looks boring at first. A meal left at your door. A room offered without asking why or for how long. A text that says, "I'm here when you're ready to talk." A hand on your shoulder that doesn't move when your story gets messy. Loyalty is not loud. It's consistent. And loyalty without empathy becomes a ledger, not love. I think about gates a lot now. How many I opened? How many were closed in my face? How many needed to be closed for me to feel safe again? Gates can keep danger out. They can keep love out too. The trick is knowing when to turn the key and when to walk away. So let me end where I started. I walked up to the house I built for my mother and almost didn't get in. That day taught me more than the boardrooms ever did. If you strip the shine away and the people around you vanish, you have not lost your people. You have found out who they were. That knowledge hurts. It also frees. If it were you, what would you have done? Would you test your family like I did, or would you trust without proof and hope the proof shows up when needed? Do you think it's fair to close the door after betrayal, or do you believe blood should always buy a second chance? I want you to wrestle with that in the comments. Argue with me. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm right. Tell me your story if you've lived anything like this. And hey, if this hit you somewhere honest, do me a favor. Like the video so more people find it. Share it with someone who needs a little light in the places they don't talk about. Subscribe if you're into stories that feel like life, not fairy tales. Drop your thoughts, your anger, your grace, your questions. I'll be reading. I always do.